Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Hope your day is going well. If you're coming in and if you're comfortable, feel free to drop your first name, your industry, and whether you are a new or an aspiring manager in the chat. If you're a new manager, happy to hear how long you've been managing. You can just drop that in the chat as you enter. We'll give it about another minute and then we can get started. All right. Thank you so much for joining today. I appreciate it. Hoping that this will be an engaging session, something that you can get something from. Hopefully, you'll hear something that inspires you, helps you along your way in your manager role. And if you're aspiring to lead, hopefully, something will inspire you to keep getting after it. I'll introduce myself. My name is Keon Weems, and I spent over 20 years in corporate America, and I managed teams for approximately 12 years. I managed individual contributors as well as other managers later in my career. And it was so fulfilling and so rewarding. It was something that I enjoyed very much. What led me to founding Practical People Leader is I wanted to make a bigger impact. The largest that my team was while I was in corporate America was I had 40-ish indirect reports and 5 team lead managers. I knew that, you're very limited when you have a direct team that way, but when you start your own business, you can impact people and you can have a broader reach. And that's what I wanted to do. I have a passion for those who are new and aspiring managers because I feel like the role of manager in our lives is so important. Managers have the ability to impact not just our professional lives, but our personal lives as well. And so when you have a great manager, things can be really well. And when you have a manager who is not great, well, things can be a lot less than well. And it follows you home. And so this is my small way in wanting to make a really big impact on the world by helping to coach, develop, give those new and aspiring leaders skills that they need to be really effective in their jobs. So that's why I'm here. And today I've broken the Q&A session up in 4 different segments. So there is an establishing credibility and building trust segment, then effective delegation and time management. After that, conflict resolution and team motivation. And then finally, effective communication and difficult conversations. Each section, I'll go ahead and address some of the pre-selected questions and then open it up for if there are any questions here live, feel free to just drop it in the chat. All right, let's get started with that first section, which is establishing credibility and building trust. So, the first question that came across is what are effective ways to build trust with team members who may be skeptical of new management? I would say, really, just to allow people to get to know you. Um, Often, when there's something to do with skepticism or there's some sort of conflict, some sort of dislike, it often can be attributed to the fact that people just don't know one another. So allow your team to get to know you and you them. And this could be done, yes, with those staples, things like icebreakers in your team meeting when you're a new manager. You can, of course, do the fun things, that if you could go on vacation right now, where would you go? If you won the lottery, what's the first thing you would buy? But you could also do more targeted icebreaker questions, such as what's a project that you've worked on in your current role, that was your favorite one, and why was it your favorite? What's a mistake that maybe you made over the past year, and what can you share with the rest of the team so that we could avoid, that same sort of mistake? Targeted questions, again, to get to know people, really getting people to talk and getting to understand what their experience is and where they've come from, and maybe why they feel that way. You can definitely dig deeper as well in one-on-ones. So one-on-ones are a great opportunity to meet individually with people and learn what their goals, their aspirations are, what their thoughts are, and just digging deeper again so that people can know you and you can know them. And that really helps facilitate the beginning of a relationship where people can begin to trust you. All right, another pre-selected question that came through: what strategies can I use to demonstrate competence and reliability in my role? This is pretty simple. When it comes to competence and reliability, I would lean very heavily into just quite simply doing what you say you're going to do. And for me, one of the best ways to do that is by being organized. So, whatever sort of resource you need to be organized, I highly suggest using it so that you can do whatever it is you say you're going to do. Something as simple as, if you tell someone, they ask you a question, hey, I don't know the answer, but I'll follow up with you by the end of the day. Being sure that you follow up with people by the end of the day. And when you still don't have the answer by the end of the day, getting back to them and say, hey, I was looking into it, I still don't have the answer yet, give me another couple of days, and then actually following up with people in those next couple of days. So to me, competence, reliability, a lot of it all really begins with doing what you say you're going to do. And that often requires being organized so you can be sure to get those things done. Another question here: how do I handle mistakes or setbacks in a way that maintains my credibility and reinforces trust? Own up to the mistake, for sure. There is nothing wrong with letting your team know that, hey, I misjudged something. I thought something was going to work out this way and it actually didn't. There's nothing wrong with owning up to your mistake. Certainly you would want to create a plan so that you could avoid that mistake on the go forward, and then sharing that plan with your team actually helps too, with sort of restoring any sort of faith or maintaining your credibility, reinforcing trust. um, that is definitely the way I would handle any sort of mistake that I made, just quite simply owning up to it. When it's something, oh, I should add this, when it's something that you can't control. So there might be another chance of you making that same mistake, such as if you tell a team, hey, we probably only need 2 team members to complete a task, and turns out you needed 4 members. When it's something that's out of your control, just saying that as well: I misjudged it. Here's why. And here is how this may likely happen again in the future, because this is the information that I get when I'm planning for something. And then later, as things develop and change and evolve, this may lead us to this same sort of result again. So, again, a lot of it is communication and just letting your team know how you plan to handle it moving forward. That wraps up the establishing credibility and building trust section. And if there are any additional questions, all right, we'll move on to segment 2: effective delegation and time management. So, one of the questions here: how do I determine which tasks to delegate and which to handle myself? For this, a lot of it has to do with visibility. What's the visibility of the project? There are some things that I do believe a manager should keep a little bit close, but there are other things that certainly you can delegate out to your team. I wouldn't want to get in the habit of delegating things that I just don't want to do, those administrative, boring things. Although you may have to delegate those out, I would also delegate projects or tasks that have a little bit more meat to them. And the way you do that is for your capable team members, give them some of those, yes, still highly visible tasks. If they're capable and if it still provides them with some amount of challenge. So it's not something that's just super easy for them, but it will give them some opportunity to learn, grow, and develop. And certainly if they've ever expressed an interest in learning something. So if someone says, I want to know more about product development. And you know that this particular task, you'll be working with somebody maybe from your product team. It would be an excellent opportunity for that person to work on a task that they're capable of getting done. That's going to provide them with a little bit of challenge and also give them some growth, some new knowledge that they didn't have before, and quite possibly a networking opportunity by them, meeting and working with someone who maybe they haven't worked with closely before. Another question here. What are the best practices for ensuring delegated tasks are completed effectively and on time? For this, I would say being super explicit about whatever the expected outcomes are. For this, you want to provide exact deadlines. You want some sort of roadmap that can be done in a shared document where maybe you've mapped it out so that there are specific checkpoints. Maybe you've set the document up in a fashion where for every task, because maybe it's a project with 20 different tasks. For every task, there can be some sort of update where a person can check a box for, not started, in progress, complete. So that way you can get a quick uh, glance at something and know kind of where a different task lays. So that is definitely something that I would do when it comes to wanting to ensure delegated tasks get completed, just being very uh, firm with what the expected results are, having some sort of shared document so that you can see with specific checkpoints, and you might some of the checkpoints may even be meeting in person to cover whatever the latest updates are. How can I balance my workload and prioritize tasks to manage my time more efficiently? Hmm. I would say, one of the things that I use is my calendar. And I don't use the calendar just for meetings, just for kind of telling myself where I need to be, but I use my calendar. I actually put all of my to do list items directly on the calendar. So I don't use a separate task sort of application or platform. I just put it all on my calendar. And I really like to put it on the calendar exactly where I want to be working on that item. I put the things on there that are must get dones for the day. You can color code it so that you know that. And then I put the things on my calendar that are nice to get dones for the day. So when it comes to your workload and sort of prioritizing your task, I would say find a resource that works for you. Again, mine is my calendar, but maybe you're someone who really likes to write things down, and you do better if it's in a notebook. If that's truly a way that you can stay organized, then do that and arrange your to-do list, if you will, in a fashion that will allow you to be sure you get your priorities done, and that anything else that's a little bit less important that is on the list, but that you understand if it's okay if it doesn't get done that day. Another thing that I think is super important is not overcommitting as a manager. I know sometimes that's hard not to do, where we feel like we really need to be in every meeting that we are invited to. And there are those meetings where it goes without saying you've got to be there. But there are other meetings that are just nice to go to. These are the times when, I would ask myself, Is there someone who can go in my place? Whether that's someone from my team or whether that's a peer who I know is going and they can give me a really great recap. Maybe it's going to be a recorded meeting that I can look at the recording later, or someone's going to send out notes afterwards. So, not overcommitting as a way to really get your workload done and keep it in order. And then one of the other things is blocking time. So if you need to get something done, maybe you're working on this really important project, you've got, a week full of meetings, but hey, I'm going to carve out these 2 hours of time where I am, for this 2 hours of time, I am just working on this task or this project. So blocking your time so that you can be sure to commit, some of your day to getting things done that need to get done. Any questions? All right. So, on to the next segment, which is conflict resolution and team motivation. Um, what are effective techniques for resolving conflicts between team members quickly and fairly? I would say to definitely have the conversation. I think often when conflict arises, I could make a guess that probably personally and professionally that there are many of us who, we choose, not to really be in any sort of conflict. And so it makes you just want to sweep things under the rug or, I'll just let it go this time. While I do think it is wise to sometimes be able to uh, decipher what can just kind of be let go. Like I'll just keep watch on it and I'll let that go. Most things, though, when it comes to your team, there does need to be a discussion. And so I would schedule time to actually meet with my team. I would, if it's between two team members, allow each of them to state what their side of the issue is. Someone says I feel and felt this way, and the other person says I feel and felt this way, and then you, as that open, neutral, calm party, you can be the one to restate what each of them has said, and then you can put it to them. How would you like to resolve this? What are some of the options? What are some of the ideas that you have for how this issue can be resolved? And then allow your team members to come up with those ideas. And when they can't, because sometimes that happens, then you be prepared to be the one to come up with the resolutions for your team, and then get their agreement so that they can agree on, one of those options. Sometimes maybe there is only one option, but they can agree on one of those options, and then you can proceed on knowing that they've both committed to whatever this sort of resolution is. And as the manager, I would definitely check in. You can check in individually in your one-on-ones with them, but you could call both of them over, like, hey guys, can you step in my office for a second and just ask, that issue that we talked about, how's that going? You guys feeling okay? And again, just checking in to make sure that the conflict has really been resolved. How can I motivate my team to stay engaged and productive, especially during challenging times? Well, for this, I lean very heavily on team meetings, definitely on one on ones as well, because everyone has individual needs. And so in one on ones, you can get more specific to whatever that person's needs are. But in team meetings, like as a group, just kind of being sure that you're delivering the message. You can let your team know, I understand this time is challenging, this is what we need from you, letting your team know continually how their work impacts the business and how they fit into the plan, the end goal, the impact that they're having on, the small things to the bigger things. I would definitely use one-on-ones and team meetings. And then something else that I've always liked to do very much. I know it depends on your industry and what you're doing, but having contests for your team and playing games with your team. Just some of the most simple things can make challenging times a lot more doable. So if you had a sales team, you can have a contest for the week, whoever makes the most sales, and then delivering something to that winner. Something as simple as a $10 gift card to their retailer of choice. They want to go to a coffee shop, or they want to go to a lunch place that's close to the office. So contests, games, just fun things that you can do to keep the motivation up, and again, just acknowledging that it's a challenging time, and you just want to help the team to power through. Those are the conflict resolution and team motivation. All right, and on to our last segment, which is effective communication and difficult conversations. So, a couple of the questions here. What strategies can I use to ensure my messages are clearly understood by my team? So, the strategy that was most I found the most success with was whenever I'm delivering a message, whether it's a new process, or there's a product change, there's a personnel change, whatever it is. um, I like to communicate verbally first when possible. I know it's not always possible, but when possible, communicating verbally first. There's a process that's coming, it's going to change, these are the changes that are taking place. And then after you deliver that, allowing the space for people to ask questions. So typically for me, this would have been like, if it's a quick huddle, because sometimes all that's all that I have the time for. I would have time for just a quick huddle. But in a team meeting, allow the space for people to ask questions about this product change. Be sure, or this process change, be sure that you explain to people the why it's changing. And then after you answer those questions and after the meeting is over, always following up in a written fashion, so that whether that is maybe an agenda that you have ongoing for your team, so they can always reference that agenda, or if it's something more important, then certainly following up with actually an email to the team to say, these are the process changes we discussed in today's meeting. These were some of the questions that were asked. Here are the answers to those questions. If you have questions going forward, please, however you intend for them to ask their questions, respond to this email and ask me your questions. Stop by my office and ask me your questions. But for me, it would always be to deliver verbally, open it up for questions, follow it up with written communication about the what you expressed verbally and the questions that you answered verbally, and then check in after you've done your written follow up. Check in with people. Hey, is it all making sense? Does anybody have any questions? Like in your next team meeting, it could be, I know we discussed the process change that's upcoming. Does anybody have any questions? That sort of thing. Just checking in with people to be sure, and then continuing to let them know that your door is open, so that if questions do arise, or some people may not have questions, they might have, thoughts and a statement, that you're open to those things. All right, one more question here, and that is, how can I provide constructive feedback without causing defensiveness or discouragement? Oof. So for this, I would say meeting with people regularly definitely helps. So if I don't just make the nature of my meeting with my team about every time when I have some sort of correction to give or constructive feedback to deliver, if I make it just a normal thing where we have a regular meeting, every 2 weeks we meet on Tuesday at 10 a.m., or every week we meet at 5 we meet at 5 p.m. for 10 minutes on Thursdays. I don't know, whatever it is. If you meet with people regularly, I think that automatically sort of lets some of that guard down about feeling defensive. And then the other thing is when you're delivering your feedback, deliver good and bad. I know there's the sandwich method that exists, where you sort of sandwich in your constructive feedback with good and then the good on the other side of it. It doesn't always have to be that. You can figure out what the right strategy is for the person whom you are delivering that feedback to. But I like to give good and bad. And maybe we're not going to go deep on the good because we meet regularly and I always tell you about what's good. Maybe I say something as simple as, 9 times out of 10, this task you do correctly every time, but this last time there was a huge mistake and this we need to talk about. Here's what happened. Here's how to avoid that in the future. And then one last thing on when people feel, defensive or discouraged, really get to know your people in regards to how they like to be coached. And that is, typically is going to be a very direct question, whether it's verbally direct or if it's like some sort of um, email with a few questions that you send to your people, but asking people how they like to be coached. Because while, if you're like me, you might like it direct. I just want you to just tell me what it is and let's just talk about it. Someone else may need a softer approach. And so getting to know how people like to be coached can really help with them being able to receive the information in the best way possible. All right. We sort of breezed through that. That was our 4 segments. And so if you are watching this in the replay, then please feel free to drop any questions that you have on these 4 segments in the comments, and I will respond to them. If you have questions outside of these 4 segments, just questions on leadership, being a manager, being a new manager, aspiring to manage, please drop those questions as well in the comments, and I will be more than happy to address those for you. And then here, as we close out, certainly want to thank anyone who has attended, as well as anyone who is watching the replay. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this information, then please subscribe to Practical People Leader, our channel. Share the channel with fellow leaders, aspiring leaders who you know can benefit from the information, and certainly like this video. Would highly appreciate it. And it helps me to understand what's really helpful to people out there searching for leadership development and skills. So thanks again for attending. And then one last thing is currently we are offering an assessment. And so it is an ultimate assessment. And certainly if you want to go just a layer deeper to understand your skills, maybe some of the things that you need to work on, then I highly recommend that you take this ultimate assessment. And anyone who takes our ultimate assessment this week, so that means before June 9th, 2024, anyone who takes the assessment this week, then you are welcome to a free one-on-one 30-minute coaching session with me where we can either discuss the results of your assessment and then build a plan. And when it comes to a plan, I'm all about giving you something that is really easy to apply and achieve. Practical is who I am by nature, and so wanting to give you something that's feasible that you really can do, and so it wouldn't be filled with deep methodology or complex frameworks, would simply give you a real plan that you can really see some really fast results from. So that would be a free one-on-one 30-minute consultation with me if you take that ultimate assessment this week. If you have questions, feel free to drop those again in the comments. Happy to answer. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure and hoping that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.